James Brodie, a Minnesota native, was born in Minneapolis July 10, 1916. While in college, he attended ROTC and was commissioned a lieutenant in the Army upon graduation from the University of Minnesota School of Engineering in 1941. It was not long before fate intervened. On a train headed for Augusta, Georgia, Mr. Brodie found himself next to Lieutenant Commander George E. Taylor. Brodie shared an idea he had after being inspired by the U.S. ships getting attacked by German submarines. The idea centered around his degree in engineering. The concept was to base one or two Piper Cub type aircraft on convoy ships to provide anti-submarine reconnaissance. The Piper Cubs used an innovative runway cable and trolley system for takeoff and landing. Lieutenant Commander Taylor was clearly interested and soon had Mr. Brodie transferred to the Army Transportation Corps to design the system. His top-secret research started in the Pentagon but was soon moved to New Orleans with a budget of $10,000 and the earliest production date possible. Planning on doing the test flying for his new prototype, Brodie took flying lessons and was then given a Taylorcraft L-2. The test flights were done to see how the hook system affected the stability, stall speed, and recovery of the aircraft. It wasn't long before an Army colonel realized that Brodie had soloed but was not actually licensed to fly. From that point, through the end of the war, James worked with Sergeant Raymond A. Gregory, his official test pilot. By the time the prototype was fully operational, the Navy had developed successful anti-submarine patrol measures, and Brodie's prototype was now concentrated in the Pacific. The Brodie system was first used in the assault on Iwo Jima. Major John Kriegsman and Lieutenant Earl Montgomery were sent out in two L-4 Cubs to inspect the island. They noticed 50 to 60 man-made caves with railroad tracks running out into the ocean. Piecing together intel, the Army realized 300 men with 380 suicide boats were planning to attack U.S. ships at night to damage the rudder and propellers so they could later be sunk by kamikazes. The information prompted an attack on the island and 16 caves were destroyed. The Brodie system and James Brodie's brilliant engineering single-handedly prevented a deadly attack that ultimately could have changed the outcome of one of the biggest battles in the Pacific. Astonishingly, due to the top-secret classification of the Brodie system during the war, James Brodie was never told how well his engineering worked. It took him years to hear from pilots who used the system. James was surprised people outside the Army had ever heard about his invention. He was awarded the Legion of Merit Award from the U.S. Army for his dedication and secrecy during World War II. After the war, James Brodie started an engineering company to develop quieter ventilation for submarines. His team developed a full-size ventilator system and a quieter and more efficient water distillation system. Both of these systems became a standard for all diesel submarines. The prototypes are currently on display at the Smithsonian Museum at the Udvar Hazy Center at Dulles Airport. Brodie's perseverance, hard work, and American ingenuity provided a system that saved the day during the last major battle of World War II. His simple design made it possible for pilots to fly on and off the Brodie hook with no formal training. His continued work for naval aviation after the war speaks to his brilliance. The Brodie hook is now displayed locally at the American Wings Air Museum at the Anoka Blaine Airport. A Minnesota native and longtime resident, James Brodie is a well-deserving recipient for his inventions for naval aviation and is now formally recognized as a 2017 Minnesota Aviation Hall of Fame inductee.